How's everyone doing today? Good? Yeah, thanks for coming out. I know it's a rainy day, but this will be a very energetic panel. I assure you that. With that said, let me introduce you to our speakers. Andre, he is the founder and CEO of E3 Insights LLC. He's a seasoned executive with over 30 years of experience helping government contractors grow sustainably through strategic, on-demand, C-level support. He's a recognized thought leader. He's shared insights with iHeartMedia, University of Maryland PMI Symposium, and TED U Street. And he has earned multiple awards as well as executive excellence. Ron, as Sanjeev introduced you earlier, he's the director of AI Partnership and Outreach for Project Management Institute. Ron joins PMI through his acquisition of Cognilytica, which he co-founded and where he co-developed the CPMI methodology. It's an AI management framework used by Fortune 1000 companies, government agencies, and nonprofit organizations worldwide. And lastly, Tareka Wheeler, she is the VP of Client Success at Arch System, and she's also the president of PMI WDC chapter. Thank you, Tareka, for joining us. She's a seasoned project leader with over 20 years of experience across public health, IT, health equity, and strategic communication. She's known for her agile, result-driven approach and has led impactful initiatives for Fortune 500 companies, federal agencies, and nonprofits. So let's give a huge round of applause for all of them. Thank you. So to kick things off, let's explore one of the most innovative forces shaping our field, that is AI. AI and the future of project leadership. I'll start with Andre. AI is reshaping decision-making and execution at scale. How should project leaders integrate AI-driven insights into value delivery while navigating ethical and operational challenges?
Thank you, Sabrina. So we all know that AI, ChatGPT specifically, can give very robust answers very quickly. One of the things that I've been using it for is to do my monthly analytics for financials. I have standard financials I've got to run. I put it in my favorite LLM tool. It spits it out. What would take me hours now takes me minutes. Now, this is a good time for me to mention we use the term AI, machine learning, generative AI, all interchangeably, but they are very different disciplines. So LLMs is an intersection between generative AI and natural language processing. George talked about how he interacts with that naturally. That's the way it's built. Natural language processing, generative AI are a subset of machine learning. Machine learning is a small subset of AI. And the importance for project managers is to know that you can make an impact in any one of these areas for your career as well as your organization. Now, I would say that we all know that ChatGPT, all LLMs do hallucinate. That is real. Some of us remember the case of Mata versus Akarar, where a lawyer produced a brief using ChatGPT. ChatGPT cited 6 fictitious cases. The judge was not pleased, fined the firm and the lawyer $5,000. And so we really want to use ChatGPT very carefully. For things that we know the answer to, like ideation, that's a good way to use ChatGPT because we know the answer. We know we won't get off track. But if you're going to use ChatGPT for things that you don't know the answer to, for guidance, you really need to double check it. So I treat it like it's a junior associate, a very smart junior associate. Nonetheless, it's something that I need to go behind and double check all the time. Now, Sabrina asked about ethics. Now, ChatGPT and a lot of these LLMs do have ethical issues such as bias, data leakage, very important in the government contracting world, protecting one's data. Overfitting. Overfitting is when you overtrain the AI for particular things and then you miss something else. So one of the things that I would encourage most of us who have the ability to do is do their own private LLM, their own private chatbot to really protect them. CGI did a great presentation about that. I've done that personally, so it is pretty straightforward to do, so I would encourage each organization to take a look at that.
Thank you, Andre. Ron, what are your thoughts?
Excellent. I think, first of all, thrilled to be here. It's kind of interesting, at Cognilytica, we were doing this research on how organizations are implementing AI back when you needed to be a data scientist and a machine learning engineer to get any value out of it. And of course, the big transformation that was generative AI really was about democratizing or putting access to AI capabilities in the hands of pretty much anybody who could speak any language or barely speak a language in the case of my kids who are using GPT for their homework, which I'm sure the teachers are not exactly thrilled about. But it's one of those life lessons that we are seeing just fundamental transition, fundamental transformation. And I think that maybe even the teachers need to think about the future of education when people are flocking to these tools on their own to use them. I think one of the great things, I loved the last session on VMO, there was this little catchphrase, justify your existence, that was, I think, being used in a different context. But I think from the project professional perspective, and part of what we're adding to the PMI landscape, is that I think project professionals provide the guidance of running and managing projects in the context of an organization trying to deliver value. And as we heard from the prior session about the use of bold and all these systems, you have to prompt these things multiple times because AI systems are still just generators. Even generative AI systems, as fantastic as they are, Cursor and Bolt and Claude and all the systems, they still don't understand your intention. We haven't cracked the code of common sense. We haven't cracked the code of what's called the U level of the DIKUW pyramid, which is the understanding level. They're good at understanding patterns, but they don't understand intention, which means that it still requires humans to understand what are you trying to do, how are you trying to get there, and that, for me, is where I see the role of project professionals who understand how to map goals and desires and directives, now leveraging technology. So I think to build on to that, I think one of the big things we're looking at here is the transition of the transformation of the industry, and AI is just core to that.
Great points. Tareka, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, thank you so much, Sabrina, and excited to be here. So a couple of thoughts. The first thing I'll say is that generative AI, if we just look at the actual genesis of the word, or the beginning of the word, it's generative. So it's going to help you generate thoughts and ideas. We have to remember as project managers, project leaders, how many certified project managers we have in the room? Throw your hands up.
Yeah,
Be excited about that. We're the experts. You know your projects, you know the scope, you know the value that you are trying to deliver to your customers. As you talk about intent, the intent starts with you. And then the generative AI, and again, let's set aside kind of on the compute side for this particular question, but on the generative side, it's good things in, good things out, or good things in, okay things out, and then you massage and you utilize really good prompt engineering to start to build out what you need. But there has to be a certain level of expertise and knowledge base that is with the actual project leader and project manager. You cannot, at this point, as you say, we haven't really cracked the code yet, you cannot really teach your LLMs the intent behind, for those folks who are like in government contracting, what your contracting officer, what your core meant by something. The only person who knows that is who? You and your team. So you really, I think prompt engineering is something that we've got to focus on in the project management, project leadership space. And then the other thing I'll add, because I think you two really handled that beautifully, is thinking about how can you add value to your organization by leveraging AI. Let's stick with generative AI. And on top of that, how can you help in the efficacy and ethics piece of that? And you, as a project manager, project leader, are going to be at the helm. You have the actual opportunity to start to drive a lot of that. We talked about, utilizing your own personal LLM. So, in my organization, we have an enterprise ChatGPT license that we utilize. And that helps us kind of start those conversations around ethics and what do we put in, what don't we put in, where are we utilizing things, especially now that you can utilize deep research within ChatGPT in particular. Even the deep research, you need to check the research. And so some might argue and say, well, as a project manager, I'm trying to optimize, I'm trying to bring efficiencies. I don't want to have to put something into an LLM, and do you mean I still have to go back and check the work? Yes, we're still there to an extent. Do you have to check it all? But you need to do some spot check and some quality assurance to ensure that what you intended to put in is giving you back enough substance and enough quality that you can actually utilize.
Yeah,
Sabrina?
those are great points. And even at my firm, we do weekly learning pods for AI session, and that has really evolved. And we've been working on so many different use cases. So I totally agree with you on that. Great points on how project leaders can harness AI-driven insights to deliver value in today's era of transformation. Building on that, as AI and Agile continues to evolve, too must the people, right, be leading these initiatives. Ron, looking ahead to 2030 and beyond, what leadership and technical skills do you believe will set the next generation of project professionals apart?
Wow, 2030. That's
Yes.
I could barely
Only 5
figure out
years away.
September.
It's happening tomorrow.
I know exactly. Oh my gosh, that's a tall order. But I think even though we may not know specifically what's going to happen, I think we can kind of see where the trends are moving. I was having some really fantastic conversations actually here. This is a great crowd that's here. The people have so many great perspectives. We were talking about, well, what is the future of education? What do you tell your kids about what they should be learning at school? I was pretty sure 5 years ago that you needed to learn coding and that everybody was screaming from the top of the rooftops that if you didn't know how to code, you wouldn't have a job. And now we're at the point where there's no such thing as an entry-level coder anymore. So it's hard to provide the advice. I think the first thing is that we need to focus on the core things that make us human: critical thinking, creativity, communication, collaboration, those so-called soft skills, which may be the hard skills, which we're actually not teaching very well in school, but that's a whole other story. And I think we need to improve that. But I think looking out for the industry, looking out to where we are, I think our job is to make sure that we are matching the goals of what we are trying to accomplish with the constantly changing technology landscape. The thing that PMI had acquired when they acquired Cognilytica was that methodology called CPMAI, the Cognitive Project Management for AI methodology. And it actually is an approach. It's a framework for running and managing AI projects in the face of constant change. One of the things we learned is that you can't really have a one-year AI project because that technology is changing so rapidly, but you could still focus on what your organization goals are. You can manage in an iterative fashion how you can deliver using the constant technology change, and manage what I see as the constant tension between desiring access to data to make the AI systems work and not providing too much access to data because of the security and privacy and governance constraints. There's this little fighting framework. You have to sort of figure out where you are. So I think mastering that, I think mastering AI literacy, data literacy, all those skills, I think will become the unsung heroes in 2030.
Absolutely. I absolutely agree with you. Andre, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, just building on what Ron said, the way I like to frame it is there's a fear that AI is going to replace lots of jobs, including project managers. And what I like to say is that that's not going to be the case. The case is going to be the difference between those project managers that adequately adapt to using AI and those project managers who don't. We would never hire somebody who is not proficient in using Google or the internet these days, right? That's going to be the case by the time you're 2030. AI is going to be embedded in so many different tools. You're going to have to learn and be proficient at prompt engineering. I love the presentation before where they use Gigawatt to find out what were good prompts to put into other tools. There are so many tools. There are dozens and dozens of AI tools. I love the concept of asking AI which tool you should use, which AI tool you should use based on what you're trying to do. That's the AI fluency, I call, the AI proficiency everyone's going to need to have in order to be able to add value to your organization and to your career.
Great points. Tareka.
Agreed with all of these points, and I'm going to take us in a little bit of a different direction because I think there's certain types of skill sets, and I do believe that these two are truly skill sets that project managers, project leaders are going to have to embrace. One is curiosity, and the other is active listening. I'm going to go in reverse order. For me, active listening is not just about sitting in the room and hearing what's being said, and it's thinking about who is saying it, what's the intent behind their saying it. You take yourself kind of through this thinking when you're listening. But active listening is about what's not being said as well, just as much as it's about what is being said. You may say, well, why? How would I be listening to something that's not being said? You're looking for the gaps. And what I think is beautiful about generative AI is it helps you with the gaps. So here's this information that was said, and I could, give you a use case or an example. Perhaps you're in a meeting and it is a strategy meeting and you're really trying to think about the approach of this particular scope of a project. And so you take the meeting minutes, they're the meeting notes and summaries that someone's given to you, and you're putting that into, a large language model, and you're wanting to kind of get a sentiment of the meeting, which, yep, do a good job with sentiment analysis. We want to get a sense of what did he mean by that? What was his intent behind that? You're not going to get that, but you're going to get a good summary, and you're actually going to get something that's pretty nice and tight and crisp. But what you need to do, because you're listening for the things that were not said, is ask for those additional insights. I did not hear anything about budget or scope creep in this conversation. Can you provide me with a few potential risks around scope creep or cost? And then that large language model is going to give that back to you. And you can say, oh, that doesn't make sense. This is not even that type of organization. Or you're going to say, oh my goodness, yes, I didn't think about that. So to me, that's the power of active listening as we're doing this application around generative AI, is that it helps you fill in those gaps for the things that are not being said. So that's one. The other skill is curiosity. Curiosity is so important, and I don't know how many parents we have in the room. You might not think the curious 2-year-old is great and fun, but give them a few years. Let them get to like 21, 25, maybe, I don't know, maybe 25, maybe 30. It might take that long. But let them get to a little bit of higher age, and that curiosity truly becomes a skill set. Why? You can't just take things at face value. You have to desire to know more, learn more, explore more. And in the space of project management and leadership in AI, to me, it's important for you to think about, well, what else and why, right? Take yourself through the 5 whys. Why did it give it back this way? Why did my team not ask for this? Why did we go in that direction? Take yourself through that type of thinking and be curious enough to ask the tough questions. Be curious enough to bring forth additional solutions. For those of you that their organizations have not fully embraced AI, leverage that space of curiosity to figure out why. Because we're going to start falling behind in a lot of different areas. So why doesn't IT want to embrace it? Why is marketing and communications not want to embrace it? They think that the content that's going to be generated is not going to be good content. Perhaps we should have a different approach of how we're leveraging content generation. So I really think those 2 skill sets at the project management and leadership level are really going to be important as we forge, forward to 2030.
Thanks, Tareka. That paints an exciting picture of the future. I appreciate that insight. So now let's shift to a very major development in our profession. The merger between PMI. Do you guys know how many members are there in PMI? Anyone? 700,000 globally. So, yes.
I know that.
The merger between PMI and the Agile Alliance. So it's a strategic game changer. And I want to start with Tareka for this one. With PMI's integration of the Agile Alliance, how will this reshape the global project management landscape and create new opportunities for professionals and organizations?
Yeah, great question. I think you really, now that we've seen the merger, occurs, like you can't really have one way without the other. Do you guys remember when like Agile really hit the scene? Not you Agilists who've been doing it like since you were born, but like when it really hit the scene and you started hearing more about it, the next, was it the 6th or 7th edition of the PMBOK came out, the test changed, like Agile was like front and center, right? It's difficult to imagine when they were separate, because it's simply a methodology and a way for us to manage our projects a bit differently in a more iterative fashion, right? And for those who may not be thinking so much about, well, what's the big deal in bringing those 2 things together? Because from a PMI perspective, it allows you to bring together those 2 lines of thinking and get project leaders, project managers, those who are working in PMOs to understand that they go in parallel. They are side by side. And the organizations needed to come together and talk same frameworks, needed to understand how to merge the 2, not only to say merge the 2 organizations, but merge the 2 lines of thinking. There's been a lot of, I think, kind of thought leadership and partnership that's been happening, because in doing a merger like that and set aside the finances behind it, it was really thinking about, well, then what does that change? What does that mean? What does that mean for the PM? What does that mean for the PMO director? And what it really meant is that now you're going to hear a single voice that's going to be able to give you guidance and insights and thoughts about, regardless if you are utilizing waterfall, you're utilizing agile, regardless if you are working in the tech side or you're working in health, that there is a single kind of message and framework that's coming because the two organizations have really come together. So I think you see it if you think about the materials that are coming out, the reports that are coming out from PMI, the trainings that are coming out for those who may be going to PMI Global Summit. The types of sessions that you will see there, you're going to see it reflected even a bit more. Tons of sessions on AI, but you also are starting to see more and more sessions that are focused on Agile. Why? Because we've got to talk about them together.
Excellent point. Ron, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's so interesting being like part of the PMI community. We're like now 3 acquisitions ago for PMI. Like you may have seen, they just announced the JV, the joint venture with Green Project Management, adding the sustainability track, Agile Alliance, Cognilytica, before that PMOGA, and before that PM Without Borders. So I think part of it is sort of this bigger vision. If you guys are not familiar with it, there's a strategy that PMI put out called PMI Next. You may want to take a look at it. And PMI Next sort of crafts sort of their vision for what they believe is the future of the industry, elevating elevating success for. I should know this.
Elevating and redefining project success. So
to elevate the world, something like that. I know. I'm bad. Let's not include that in the recording. But basically, the idea here is to sort of bring together a lot of these different aspects of the industry, the things that are really pushing and developing and I would say transforming the whole industry. And I come at this as not a project manager. It was so strange when we were developing CPMI as techies, as data scientists working for a lot of the government agencies and the big banks who wanted to make AI do what they want. And we're like, well, okay, the technology is great, but it's changing. Like, there's got to be a method. There's got to be a way to manage these things. Lo and behold, it's called project management. That was a whole opening of the universe for us. And I think that's part of it, because there's all these different aspects that don't even realize how connected they are to the project infrastructure, the project way of thinking. And so I think that's part of it. And I think really there's a role and opportunity for everybody here. We're all part of making this industry advance. We're all, that question about 2030, I think we should all be thinking about it. Mm-hmm. Don't ask GPT that question. I don't think it would provide a good answer. But it might provide you some curiosity, some active listening, some things to consider. So that's sort of my perspective as both an insider and an outsider.
Thank you. Andre?
Like Tareka said, I remember the days when Agile came into its own. And it was different because it was an additional methodology, a different way of looking at it. We were all doing waterfall. We thought that was the greatest thing since sliced bread. Thing along came Agile. We had to decide which one. It came along. Then Ron said, how do you do an AI project? So again, another methodology that we can use to choose from. This sustainability that's coming, another methodology. But AI is going to infuse all of those methodologies. Yeah. It's going to impact whether you're doing waterfall or agile. Imagine AI is going to impact how you do AI projects. Right? And so the key really begins as we move forward. How does a project manager use AI, no matter what methodology you're using, to really enhance the way we deliver projects, no matter what methodology we're using? So sometimes I refer to this as having project managers be multilingual. That you guys will be able to speak, whether it's sustainability, AI, agile, you'll be able to speak those methodologies. But how do you then use AI to change, to augment how you actually deliver those projects and doing AI? And so that's really the exciting aspect that I see as we bring these methodologies all within one platform and then infuse AI on top of it.
The holistic approach. I love it.